Hello, I'm Casey Aiken, and this is 21 This Week. Coming up next, what signals were being sent in Governor Hogan's State of the State speech? What are the top legislative agendas in the House of Delegates? And Mark Elrich wants to lure top-level high-tech companies to Montgomery County. Now, how's he going to do that? Stay tuned. Our panel of insiders will give you the story behind the story. We're joined by the past president of Progressive Maryland, Elbridge James. Maryland Young Republican National Committeeman, Evan Young. Transportation and railway consultant, Phil Bell. And political strategist, Susan Heltemes. Stay tuned for these stories and more on the next 21 This Week. In his first State of the State speech since being re-elected, Maryland Republican Governor Larry Hogan repeated the same things that were successful during his first term. There was an emphasis on bipartisanship, a renewed call for tax reduction, and incentives for business that would help the state economy grow. Governor Hogan urged the General Assembly as follows: let's do the right thing and give money back to the people who have worked so hard to help make it happen. Susan, Governor Hogan has proved himself to be an adroit politician, as evidenced by his re-election last November. Will he be able to continue his success during his second term?
It wasn't so much as he won the election. It's because the Democrats lost it. We had the weakest candidate that out of the whole pack of candidates that we had, which made it much easier for him. But on Tuesday night, PBS had, with Judy Woodruff, had a live streaming event, and it was the governor of Maryland. It was in Baltimore at Johns Hopkins. It was the governor of Maryland, the governor of Pennsylvania, and the governor of New Hampshire. What do they have in common? They're one party, their legislature is in the other party. And so how do you govern? And so Judy Woodruff knew that he was thinking about running for president, and she said, "What's your secret?" And he told the truth. He said, "I listen to what the people want, and then I support that." And so he has followed up on all the things for years that the Democrats have supported, and he's tried to take them away and get credit. But
Oh, you mean he didn't have his own agenda? Is that what you're trying to say, Susan?
no, his agenda isn't the winning agenda, because remember, Democrats are strong in the legislature.
Let's see, Susan. Did he in the first term, did he reduce taxes? Did he reduce fees? Did he do away with some of the ridiculous taxes?
And as a result,
Susan,
we have less
Susan,
money to spend on things like road repair and construction.
Susan, you got to give the governor a little credit here. Now, Elbridge, the poor health of the majority leader and the Speaker of the House of Delegates suggests that the governor may be holding a stronger hand for this legislative session. What do you think?
No, because the leadership in place on both the House and the Senate are strong, and there's coordination between the two. The governor has a weaker hand with fewer Republican allies in the Assembly, and he's not going to really, he still has to collaborate with folks.
Well, he still controls the budget. He controls the budget process.
Yeah, but there's a veto-proof majority in both the Senate and the House to override some things.
All right, Evan, as you can hear, there's some people thinking that the governor isn't ready to take a strong victory lap, given his showing in November. As Elbridge pointed out, they have the Democrats have veto-proof majorities in both houses. So what can we expect? Are we going to expect a successful legislative session?
Well, I think, we're looking back the past 4 years, and especially the last 2 years, Governor Hogan's talking a lot about bipartisanship, and there was some bipartisanship from Democrats as well, because they knew an election was coming up against an extremely popular governor. We saw Senate Democrats sending out mailers with their pictures with Governor Hogan on them. But now, they had a great night in November. They're stronger across the state than they were last year and 2 years ago. So now, while Governor Hogan might still want the bipartisanship, he talks about bipartisanship, Democrats, they don't really have a need to act in a bipartisan manner. They're not running against a popular incumbent governor 4 years again from now. They have more power than they did before. So on things like tax cuts and especially redistricting, I don't see anything to indicate the Democrats are going to want to work with him on that, especially when we have an attorney general getting in the way of nonpartisan redistricting because he voted for it, and now he's trying to keep gerrymandered districts in favor of Democrats. They're not going to work with him. They don't have a reason to now.
All right, well, so, Phil, we've been talking about how popular Governor Hogan was during the last term, the fact that he won re-election. The Washington Post reports that Governor Hogan is weighing a White House run. Is that because he's got nowhere to go politically in Maryland? I mean, Chris Van Hollen is the next U.S. Senate race that's going to open up. Ben Cardin was just reelected for 6 years. No Maryland Republican other than Governor Hogan has been elected statewide in who knows how long.
A while.
Well, let's think about it. First of all, you have somebody that's done incredibly well as governor. And it's not that he managed to fall into re-election, Susan. He actually did win, and he stomped on the Democrats pretty hard.
And we had the weakest
so that was number
candidate
one.
possible.
Even if your stronger candidates would have also been stomped on similarly bad. But beyond that, there continues to be a schism in our party. We have the majority of us that are making the right decision and supporting President Trump. You have a few that do not. So that certainly does open up an opportunity, or at least for the thought of saying, well, hey, maybe I'll run for the White House this year, or maybe I'll run in 2024 after. So it's natural that someone like Governor Hogan, who's been critical of him, would do that. But it certainly makes sense to hear those conversations.
Susan, here's what I think, and you actually gave me the thought when we were talking earlier that perhaps he wants to run against Senator Cardin in 6 years, and an opportunity to run against President Trump is a wonderful fundraising opportunity. Keeps his name out there, and certainly would appeal to what might be his base. So, isn't the real problem that your party doesn't have a good bench? And who's going to run for governor in 4 years? Who's going to possibly?
I think we have an incredible bench, and our bench became a whole lot stronger this year when we took over.
You think Glenn Jealous was a great bench?
No, I never said that, but we still have those candidates around who ran
And
for governor.
Rusher and Baker is not going to be running next time.
We don't know what he's going to run for. And also, we have new county executives across the state. We have a stronger bench than you do.
The Democratic Party has a weakness. Elbridge, I would love to discuss this with you, but we're out of time, and we have to go to the next topic.
You have nothing.
Which is not surprising. Boyd Rutherford is the lieutenant governor, and he's going to be running for governor.
And he's not going to run.
Not surprisingly. Why, you won't vote for a black Republican?
No, I said he's
That's
not
pretty
running.
racist.
Wow.
You must be going to the marijuana shop.
No, that's what I'm told by people.
Okay.
I occasionally.
All part of the plan.
I'm sorry. Have you seen his profile?
Next topic.
Yeah,
My goodness. All right. We're going to have
You're
fun.
wrong.
Not surprising. There are two very different legislative agendas this year being offered by the two political parties in the House of Delegates. Democrats listed their top four priorities as being the $15 an hour minimum wage, statewide ban on polystyrene containers, reduction of the cost of prescription drugs, and raising the age adults can use tobacco products to age 21. I guess that's the vaping issue, isn't it? Maryland Republicans are seeking a 0.25% reduction in the Maryland income tax, redistricting of the legislative districts, and a registry for violent offenders. They also want to have a budget to allow special police officers in public schools for safety. Susan, there are plenty of studies that suggest that raising the minimum wage results in fewer jobs. Governor Hogan estimated a loss of 100,000 jobs if it's raised to $15 an hour. How are Maryland businesses supposed to compete when the minimum wage in Virginia and Pennsylvania is $3 an hour less?
Well, first of all, they're talking about raising it in those states. And I have argued with you, I bet 6 times on this show, that the reports you've read about $15 an hour are wrong. There are plenty of reports based in facts and accurate research that shows that $15 does not destroy the economy. And so there are exceptions to these rules for young people. It isn't like a 14-year-old is going to start at McDonald's making $15 an hour. However, it is realistic for a person to earn that much if they want to survive in this economy.
Wait a second.
Go ahead, Phil.
Let me ask a question. The higher and higher we make the minimum wage, how are we supposed to get, whether it's young people or people who are a little bit older, to get experience in the job market? You know what, it's one thing if somebody comes in and says, I don't really have a lot of skills, I want to get my foot in the door. And they say, Phil, I'll give you $5 an hour to help me do some filing and clean up around here. Prove your worth.
And
we'll
as
give
I
you
said,
more.
there are always exceptions for.
Always, we're not just talking about young people. We're talking about up and down the economy. $12, $15, and otherwise. Now it's not just taking a chance on someone, it's making a substantial investment.
You want in on this?
Yeah, I got examples right now with my wife's job where she's had to go back to upper management and say, our lower employees, where the turnover rate is so drastic at the cheaper wages. And they just voted in Virginia, that company, to turn around and raise the lowest wages up to $12.50. And will move higher just to keep good employees.
All right, well, look, we're not going to debate the issue here because I want to go through these other topics. Phil, is the General Assembly likely to reduce the state income tax?
I'll make it easy. No, not at all.
The Democrats won't allow it,
I
even
don't-
if it gets to them.
I don't think they, based on everything else they're talking about, polystyrene ban, more government to control prescription drugs, they don't even understand what they're doing.
So, Evan, the focus in the Senate is to create a board to reduce prescription drug prices. How does that even work, and is it even possible for the state to do that?
Well, I think the big problem here is that doesn't address why these drugs are so costly in the first place. One state out of 50 creating a board that takes it upon themselves to justify what a drug company is allowed to charge and think that they can somehow determine what the market should be better than the people that actually manufacture the
Well,
drugs.
what happened today, though, is Secretary Koska in HHS, the U.S. Health and Human Services, has actually put forth a proposal that will work with that very issue and bring down drug costs. It's one of the best things that I've heard in a long time.
Glad to hear you're
dovetails with
supporting
what
the
he
Trump
says.
administration.
I didn't say
In
that.
addition, those same drugs over in Europe and other countries are half the price they
Because
are
the
here.
U.S. is subsidizing the cost of all of them.
For the research, otherwise
Yeah.
Wait a
it
minute,
wouldn't
and some
happen.
of
And
those
then if we
companies,
no longer
and some
do
of those
that, the
companies are
research
making
goes
billions
away.
of
The
dollars
innovation
off the
goes
high
away.
prices.
Well, wait a second, Elbridge, what's wrong with making billions of dollars? Where do these billions of dollars go?
They go into the owners' pockets.
And who are the owners?
White people.
You can do a simple search on Yahoo and find out the majority of these companies are owned by pension funds and other vehicles that are supporting people like you and the other folks on this
Well,
stage.
there are-
That money is coming to us, the amounts other than what is being used to develop more drugs. Otherwise, we're not going to have it.
That's not the
Any
case
of
in every. That's
Well,
not the case
look,
in every
Absolutely
place.
is the case.
Well, look, there's the cost of research in drug manufacturing is extraordinarily high, and I'm sure that's part of the reason that drug prices are high. But I want to go to you just as we're going to break, Elbridge. Would you support special police officers in public schools?
We have resource officers in Montgomery County who are doing an excellent job. I believe that each of the counties know what their needs are and should small government choose accordingly. So I cannot say what they need in Allegheny County versus what they need in Prince George's County
the
or
drug
Worcester
prices-
County.
But I mean, I guess the suggestion here is that our schools are no longer safe, and that we need special police officers across the board to make them safe.
Montgomery County has police officers already that are assigned to schools, and they assign, even if the school isn't in the same police district, they put a police officer that is in that district.
Correct.
So that they know the schools,
Right.
they know the neighborhood.
Well, maybe that's not the case in other jurisdictions.
Well, yeah, but let's
Susan,
let
but
each
other- but
district do it.
you get the last word. When we come back from this short break, we're going to focus on Montgomery County issues, including the retirement of Police Chief Tom Manger and speed cameras on I-270. Oh my goodness, stay tuned. Okay. So welcome back. Montgomery County Executive Mark Elrich has announced a goal of attracting more information technology jobs. This may be a tough sell given the county executive's reputation as being anti-business. Evan, isn't this effort by the county executive misdirected? Since taking office, Mr. Elrich has killed the eastern leg of the Montrose Parkway and stated that the county didn't need more housing for millennials making high incomes. Now he's on the West Coast looking for high-tech jobs. Who does he think works for high-tech? Millennials.
We've talked about before how millennials, especially those that are doing well, putting down roots, making good money, starting families, they're not choosing to live in Montgomery County anymore. They're moving out to Frederick, they're moving to Howard County, they're moving to Northern Virginia. Montgomery County is a net exporter of adjusted gross income migration. It's going out to these counties. So while we're bringing in more low-income residents, more of our higher earning, especially younger residents, are moving to these other places that I talked about when we're actually getting married and putting down roots. So even if he was able to bring, these high-tech jobs to Montgomery County, you can still move to Frederick and commute into Montgomery County. You can move to Howard, commute to Montgomery County. You can live in Northern Virginia, commute to Montgomery County. So these jobs, I don't think would be enough to keep people when there's less expensive housing, better tax environments, just a short commute away. It's going to take a lot more than that to keep high-earning millennials and jobs in Montgomery County.
I think the problem that the county has is that there's not enough jobs being created in Montgomery County. That if you look at the development in the county, it's residential, commercial residential, and not office space, not warehouse space, because we don't have the demand for businesses to relocate.
And Mark Elrich is not going to convince businesses to come here, that's for sure.
Oh, he's not talking about big businesses. He's
Any
talking
businesses.
about small businesses. I
They're
think
going to
he
do
can.
worse.
Small
businesses will get kicked their teeth
He's
in.
going to make that stride.
And technical businesses,
There's a
the
point where
infrastructure is here.
all humans have the ability to learn. If you listen to Mark in his later comments, he understood he made a misstep. And he has spoken and addressing those things. He's learning on the go. We talked about this last week. I live in Rockville. There is now plenty of housing being built in Rockville and other areas for millennials. Our concern is for less income individuals, which the county still needs also. Where are they going? It's a process of learning. And I hear you saying that, but Democrats have held control for so long because they know how to run good government.
And after holding it for so long, look at all the problems they're saying they need to fix.
But guess what? And they're addressing them, and we're addressing them.
So why do you get to create problems and then say, well, elect
We
us and
don't
we'll fix them?
always create problems, but in fact,
You just
when we
said
realize
you've been the only ones in charge here.
Well,
Who else has been elected in Montgomery
Republicans
County?
have been
Wait,
around
one at a
forever,
time.
and you can't get anyone
Yeah.
elected. So,
Right.
you can complain
the
until
population evidently believes in
Voters
Democrats.
keep making bad decisions. You're absolutely right.
Well, all right. So we'll put Mr. Elrich's efforts to bring in new business aside. I want to talk about something that the county council is thinking of doing. Elbridge, the focus has been on police shootings for quite some time. And the county council wants to address that by creating a oversight panel on the county council to oversight police shootings, particularly in police deaths. Why should the county council do that when already the police department has an administrative procedure and a review procedure anytime a police officer fires a weapon?
I spoke with Chief Manger the other day before I even knew this was going to be a topic. And one of the issues that were brought up were about the oversight and how we have a relationship with Howard County. So in fact, Howard County looks at our situations, we look at Howard County's situations. One of the problems that I spoke to him is that you may have confidence, and there may be great reason to have confidence in another police department looking at your critical issues. The point is that the general public and the voting public and the residents do not have confidence that that information will come out to us. And unfortunately, because of other jurisdictions having bad policing practices, there's maybe this misconcept that in fact there's a cover-up. And a lot of times there's not a cover-up, you just sometimes need more eyes.
Look, we all know that 20 years ago, Prince George's County had a horrific reputation for its police department. And it was an embarrassment for the whole jurisdiction. But Montgomery County's police department has always held high standards. This seems to me politicians trying to get in the opportunity of taking advantage of a national topic and not addressing the issues that are here in
Well,
in
Montgomery
the
County
county.
Police already have a citizens board that advises them, and I think part of the issue is that voters just need to know that this relationship exists with Howard County, and it's very professional.
But it has a citizen board because of Police Chief Manger. I've tried to serve on committees that do police community relations. It depends on who is the police chief and who is the county executive, how far it goes. This institutionalizes it. So in fact, no matter who is in charge, citizens will have that right, that opportunity to have these things addressed. We're not saying there's a major problem, but you need to have more public, for lack of a term, scrutiny and knowledge about what is happening.
We're not transparent enough?
If the public doesn't know it, no.
All right. Susan, I want to get around to the topic of Chief Manger's leaving. The longest serving tenured police chief in Montgomery County history is retiring. Why is he doing it?
Well, first of all, he's old enough to retire. He can get retirement. Secondly, he has kids that are in their teens and getting ready to go off to college. He'd like to spend a little time with them. And also, he has been the head of the Major Cities Police Chief Association. He's been the president. He has worked with them for a long, long time and has worked with them on legislative issues. And what he's going to do is he's going downtown, he gets to work 9 to 5, and he's going to be in charge of their legislative affairs. It's a job he's really loves. And I talked to him way back in December, and he's excited.
Well, I'm sorry, we had a couple more questions. One about speed cameras on I-270 and MCPS's proposal to allow excused absences for public protesting. We'll have to get to them later. Stay tuned for Parting Shots. And welcome back now with Parting Shots, Susan Heltemes.
54 years ago, Sergeant Shriver, who lived right here in Montgomery County, worked for LBJ, and they were working on the poverty fight. And during this time, you'll recall that President Kennedy had already started Peace Corps. Well, now Mrs. Shriver, Eunice Shriver, said we need something domestically, and out of it came AmeriCorps, Vista, Senior Corps, all of those wonderful things that works domestically. And in the Senior Corps is grandparents, senior visit, RSVP. All of us have been affected by people who have worked for that. It's important in this country to go out into the hinterlands and the urban cities to work on the issues that we need. Well, the Trump administration is planning on defunding that program on May 1st. I think we should all be up in arms. Call your congressmen, call your senators. This is one of the stupidest things I've ever heard of. I don't understand this at all, so make those calls.
Thank you, Susan. Phil Bell, your parting shot.
Thank you, Casey. A couple of weeks ago, I was very excited to celebrate the re-election of Governor Hogan at the inaugural ball, actually joining fellow panelist Evan Young. Unfortunately, despite being a great guest and having a wonderful time, I committed the cardinal sin of going to the restroom and trying to come back to the ball. As a result, the MGM security shoved me into a pillar, broke my glasses, and just treated me like a total piece of filth. The sad part is that this MGM casino, which has managed to electrocute a young girl, not only commit this, and be just a generally unpleasant place to be, is where the governor picked to have his inaugural ball. It's very sad. And what was even worse is not only were the Prince George's police dismissive, but also a member of the governor's security detail, which makes me really worry about him. So my parting shot, avoid the MGM Grand Casino. I say that as a shareholder of the company. We need to reform that. It's got to get better.
Thank you, Phil. I'm sorry to hear that. Evan, your parting shot.
Yeah, so let me take you back to the first work day after the shutdown ended. I was at the gym, 4:30 a.m., banging out some heavy squats. It was a sight to be seen. But I was talking to a friend in between sets. He's a government contractor. He was heading back to work, but he wasn't getting back pay like federal employees do. So if we had a Congress full of adults who actually wanted to get something done and solve some problems, the first step they would take is making sure that contractors are also paid back for them not being able to pass a budget and keep the government open. And second of all, I mentioned it before, passing the El Chapo Act, $14 billion could fund everybody, Republicans, Democrats, everyone in between, things they want done at the border and still have money to spare.
Thank you, Evan. Elbridge, you got about 30 seconds.
I want to applaud the Montgomery County Democratic Central Committee. I attended a meeting after several years of absence. I've watched the diversity in both age, gender, income, and racial exhibited in that room. Well-run meeting. Yeah, they may have hiccups along the way, but I see democracy in Montgomery County alive and well.
Thank you, Elbridge. I want to thank the panel for being here tonight. I want to thank the audience for tuning in each and every week to Montgomery County's hardest hitting political talk show. For 21 this week, I'm Casey Aiken.